It is so great to be back here at Spelman College and here with all of you in Sisters Chapel. I am a native of Atlanta. My mother and my grandmother are graduates of Spelman College. So yeah, exactly. So HBCUs are very near and dear to my heart and have a very special place also in the newsroom that I work for at the 19th. Just to tell you all a little bit about the 19th, if you are not familiar, we are a nonprofit independent newsroom focused on the intersection of gender, politics, and power. A lot of that intersectionality also involves race and all the other things that can marginalize people in a democracy. And so we started 4 years ago in 2020, right before the Iowa caucuses, and we are now covering our second presidential election. And if you had told us, exactly, very exciting for us, if you had told us there was going to be a woman on the ballot already this time around, we would not have believed you, but here we are, right? Here we are. So Dr. Spence already kind of took a roll call, but I have to say, where are my voters at? We got some voters in here? Yes. That is good to see. We are all about voting, literally, at a newsroom that is named for an amendment about voting. In the audience today, I also have to call out 2 classes of our Frances Ellen Watkins Fellowship Program. That is a program that we have at the 19th, and it is named for the mother of African American journalism. We launched our program to provide recent graduates, mid-career alums, and former students of historically black colleges and universities with the full-year salaried fellowship, which has full benefits. Hello, I know if your parents are listening, full benefits and on-the-job training. I started my career as a journalist with a fellowship. I know how transformative they can be. You can check out more information about our fellowship by going to 19thnews.org and looking up our fellowships. We also have our fellows, who I'm going to ask to just stand up, our 2 cohorts. If you are here, they're right down front. They are happy to talk to you all about our fellowship program if you are interested in learning more. So as Dr. Spence mentioned, as a journalist, I've been covering race and gender throughout my career. In every election, I'm paying attention to and listening to black women. And this year, with a black woman at the top of a major party ticket for the first time, we are no longer just a loyal voting bloc. We are shaping policy, we are shaping messaging, we are leading in our communities, we are working for enfranchisement and volunteering at the polls. We are now less than 3 weeks from Election Day. There is nowhere else I would rather be than in my hometown of Atlanta, Georgia, and talking with this amazing group of women who I would like to introduce to you right now. Next to me, I have Sarah Jones, who is a Tony Award-winning playwright and actor. She is also the creator and host of the fantastic new podcast, America, Who Hurt You? Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
I don't even know if I need to introduce my next guest, because if you are following her on Instagram, you already know. Lene Vinny is a multifaceted performer, poet, influencer, writer, and actress from right here in the A. She is a graduate of Spelman College. Hello. Yes. And most excitingly, Lene recently founded the nonprofit Good People, which is focused on voter education and empowerment through media. Lene, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Selena Stewart, newly minted CEO of the League of Women Voters, the 104-year-old voting rights organization that is focused on empowering voters and defending democracy. Selena, also an alum of Spelman College. I'm having a little FOMO, Sarah. I don't know about you. Last but certainly not least, somebody who also may not need an introduction on this campus, Simone Moales, president of Spelman's 83rd Student Government Association, who is leading with a passion for advocacy and uplifting her peers. Her work in public service includes internships with Georgia Senator John Ossoff and Congresswoman Jahana Hayes. Simone, welcome. Okay, well, let's get into this conversation about black women and the 2024 election. Selena, I'm going to start with you. Like I said, you're the newly named CEO for the League of Women Voters, but you have been working for voting rights and access for much of your career. So I want to talk about barriers to voting that still exist for too many people around this country. We know that also includes black women. Voter enthusiasm, which we have seen across the country, is great, but not everybody who is enthusiastic has access to the ballot box. Let me just open this conversation by asking you, what concerns do you have going into this election? And where is your team really focusing their efforts?
Okay, so there's a few things that concern me, but nothing that we can't overcome, girls. And I will just say AI is a problem. One, because it's so cheap and it can be spread so quickly, and so we have to be very vigilant about pushing back on false narratives, especially when it involves us, right? And Black women specifically are targeted because we show up and we show out for elections. And so we should just know that. But again, I think the way we continue to overcome that is by showing up. The other thing is that in Georgia specifically, we filed a few cases here, unfortunately. More recently, there was a win. There was I think it was the Board of Elections wanted to do everything hand count. So millions of voters coming to the polling places, right? And they want to hand count, which takes forever. And if you don't know, there are deadlines for when things have to be counted or when votes have to be counted, a due date. And so that would have slowed down the process. And so just this week, or maybe it was last week, I can't remember. This is like the longest. This is the longest.
Correct. What is time?
The longest election season ever. But we were able to get that stopped. Amen. Because it is so important to make sure that we can use the technology that we have to make sure we can vote. And I just want to remind each of you, it is early voting in Atlanta or Georgia.
Started Tuesday.
Yes, so you can vote anywhere. So I would say you all had record turnout earlier this week. I think it was like
300,000 on day one.
300,000 voters showing up. That is so critical. And so I would say there are issues. There's always issues consolidating polls, changing polls or poll locations at the last minute, purging folks. But it's something we can overcome. Check your registration, vote early, and let's bang this shit out. We're in the chapel.
Bang this stuff out.
I did not say that. Dr. Spence, I'm sorry.
Doing like
stroll
competition
here. You know
bang it out. Just bang it out.
Well, I asked you about what concerns you. What is exciting you in this moment, Selena?
I'm inspired by all of us. We show up. One of the things that we have seen in our history is how resilient Black people in particular are. No matter what goes on in this country, largely, we still show up to do it. And I think we have to make sure we bring our brothers along. There's a large conversation about whether or not Black men are going to show up. And we all have a Morehouse brother, right? If you still talk to him, you should still talk to him.
It just started. It's early.
You should. No,
I'm
just saying. Sometimes
some of y'all, it's not the
sometimes
first
you lose
semester.
connection with your Morehouse brothers. No shade.
Sure.
But I'm just saying, bring your brothers along, not only on campus, but also in your families. We just have to make sure this is such an amazing moment to live in, and it's crazy because so much is coming at us. But if we just take a moment and just pause and just think about the historic nature of what we're doing right now, and really enjoy this moment, because 20 years from now, people are going to ask, what were you doing when? That's right. And so I just want us to keep that at the top of our mind, but also just keep pushing until we get past this election.
Amen. Yeah, the week after the election, I'm going to be asking, where were you and what were you doing when? In addition to access and the ability to overcome barriers to voting, everybody here in their own way has really worked to inform voters. I want to talk to each one of you about that. How you're using your platform to inform voters, to fight the disinformation that Celine just mentioned, and to help people connect to the issues that can be hard to understand. Lene, let me start with you.
Well, I think I'll backtrack a couple steps and think back to the beginning of this year. I saw a lot of my community becoming disenchanted and disenfranchising themselves, bowing out before we've had a chance to actually participate. And that's one of the reasons why I started Good People, because I felt like we have not, as a community, had the ability to fully harness what it means to show up at every single election, not just every 4 years, and vote on one accord and strategically to actually have power, to actually make sure that there are people in different spots in our governmental structure that support the ideas that we look for every 4 years when we have a presidential election.
So, you already had a relationship with your audience. What did you understand from them about, them not really being enthusiastic, but that not meaning that was necessarily about apathy or them not caring about their country or what was happening in their community? They do care. They just were not feeling.
Yeah, they didn't feel like they were heard.
Yeah.
And again, it's every 4 years we hear the sentiments, my vote doesn't matter, or I'm sick of a two-party system. And right now, what TikTok has given us is the ability to be global citizens in a way that we've never been before. So people legitimately care and are exposed to the atrocities that are going on around the globe. And so there's been this sentiment to want to, burn it all down. And I had a conversation with someone in my comments most recently. I completely understand that, but we have to build foundation. We have to build safety nets to catch us as we're burning the rooms that we're in. It's a gradual process. It's a long-term process, and we are. Contrary to popular belief, we live in a racist country. It was built on the backs of racism and misogyny and all the things. So it's going to take time for us to break that apart and dismantle it. And unfortunately, with TikTok, randomly, like Amazon Prime delivering your package in 2 days, I say all that to say we've become so accustomed to immediacy and convenience, and that's not the way our political system is going to work. So I've been trying my best to continue to instill weekly and in different ways and through different methods of storytelling, through different avenues that matter to different people, that this is a fight that you should be engaged in throughout. So that's been my goal.
Yes. Sarah, what would you add to that?
In a similar vein, so I'm in entertainment. And those messages, right? I'm fortunate to have been on Broadway, but I've also made my own film talking about Black women in power. I've been fortunate to perform at the White House. The last time a Black person was in there, knocking on wood for the next time. But messaging, we can use entertainment to say any old thing, right? Why not use it to actually remind ourselves who we are? And speaking of which, I'm a proud Black woman. I have FOMO because I'm the only non-Spelman graduate or soon-to-be graduate on this stage, but I did go to Bryn Mawr College, where you had the opportunity to interact with Spelman. And as a Black woman from a mixed race experience, which is increasingly common in our culture, and people love to divide and conquer. So I saw your name, Simone, and I was like, Simone Moales, like my cousins from Dominican Republic. And it was like, no, it's Moales, let's calm down. But, the solidarity that we have among Black folks.
We still have solidarity, it's okay.
We still have solidarity. But I'm saying, we see, right, we have Black immigrants. We saw what happened with the conversation in Springfield, Ohio, where the attacks, the racism mingled with the anti-immigrant sentiment, right? We need to kind of drill down on all those intersectional realities. And so my podcast, I talk to everybody from Tarana Burke, who's the founder of the Me Too movement, about, survivors and everything that Black women kind of are building there, to Laverne Cox, who, she broke it down for us about we need solidarity among Black women and femmes, whatever right? So it's all of those conversations that hopefully, like Lene is saying, and also like Selena was saying, we have to be doing this work. Basically, to be a Black woman in America is to be politicized at all times. We are politics in this country. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, 100%. And Black women are bringing a multitude of identities with them to the polls, right?
Some of us more than others. Y'all don't even want to know. I have about 100 personalities, and they're all on the podcast.
I love a theater background. Simone, what would you add to, just how you are contributing on your campus, in your community, to making sure that Black women are doing what needs to be done in this consequential, critical election that is existential for so many of us?
Of course. I would say that prior to having a platform at Spelman, I was blessed with amazing people in my life. So I have to point to my parents. My dad is a preacher. My grandfather was a bishop. And so I've always been empowered with choice. In that instance, I was empowered to choose faith over fear, utilizing that background. With my mother, a public school educator for now over 20 years, I've been empowered with a choice to choose knowledge over ignorance. We have to combat misinformation and disinformation constantly, especially during this important election. And now it's Spelman with an amazing platform, being able to speak and engage and empower and just have sisters like you all. I have been empowered to choose agency over apathy. This is not a time for us to distance ourselves from the choice that we have. This is not an opportunity for us to utilize our voices or stifle our voices instead of speaking up. And so I'm blessed to have those people prior to being able to assume this platform and really make sure that Spelman is a place that cultivates a culture of civic engagement and leadership everywhere, from classrooms like ADW to more nuanced classes like racism in the law or American presidency. We're challenged with conversations that inspire us to use our faith, that inspire us to acquire that knowledge, but also that inspire us to utilize our voice in the classroom and outside of the classroom. And so I'm graced to have each of you as sisters to constantly have those conversations, but each of you as sisters to hold you accountable to get to that ballot box to make sure that you have your absentee ballot, and to make sure that you are knowledgeable about the issues on the ballot and that you are prepared to either join the new electorate of 8 million Gen Z first-time voters and be a part of the 5.7 million Black Americans who are joining this electorate. And so we are excited, we are engaged, and I'm so grateful to be able to utilize this platform off of an amazing village of people who have stewarded this voice that I now have.
Yeah, absolutely. Simone, I suspect this is not your last campaign. I'm just going to throw that out there.
You ate that.
Well, listen, I mean, as we've said, this is a historic election for a lot of reasons, not least of all because we have a Black woman at the top of the ticket for one of the major parties for the first time in history. I want to talk about voter enthusiasm and how that has changed since the switch that occurred on July 21st. I guess, what do you all make of that? For me, witnessing it was pretty much immediate. I don't know, how many of you all were on the 44,000 call with Black women on that first night?
I missed it.
I was trying to get through.
How many of y'all in the audience? Anybody call in? Any of y'all get that Zoom link? Yeah, I know it was hard.
44,000 other people.
Right, right. It was like some people just got the Zoom link and put their sisters on speakerphone because it was that kind of night. But I mean, just that was the catalyst for so much more of the enthusiasm that we've seen happen. I went, Atlanta was her first stop, after, as a candidate, and just seeing Vice President Harris at that rally, but also seeing the people that were in that arena, the joy that was real, people signing up to volunteer in record numbers, people, Black women in my life who told me that they were donating money for the first time. I mean, people who vote in every election but had never given money, had never thought about knocking doors, had never thought about, I'm getting text messages from Kamala Harris more than my mama and my man. I'm like, what's going on? We appreciate the text messages, but it's a lot. It's a lot. Election day can't come soon enough because the text messages. But no, I mean, all of that is proof of the enthusiasm that I think that we have seen for somebody who was openly discussed as maybe somebody people would not be excited about, right? Somebody who maybe did not have a chance. And I think that we're seeing that she is proving, every day that there is a lot of enthusiasm for her candidacy, for her, and for this campaign. I wonder how you all are seeing that, what you all make of that. Sarah, I'll come back to you.
You know what? So I was at the DNC, and the experience of being in that convention center, because I'm one of these, I have a lot of critiques. I have family from international backgrounds. I have Jews, I have Christians, I have everything. The past, I'll keep it a buck with everybody. Since October 7th, it has been extremely challenging among, many folks I'm interacting with to stand for our truth as Black people and not feel, I'll put it this way. We have to hold on to our values, and I think being there together in that moment, when she took that stage, it was electric. No matter where people are, if they're, it felt like this new hope. So here's my concern, and you didn't ask for our concerns, you asked for our hopes, but I want to make sure, okay, I told y'all I have a lot of personalities and they all come from my real background. So we talked about Morehouse brothers. This is not a Morehouse brother. I'm from New York, he's from Brooklyn. Y'all get ready for a second. Here we go. Okay. I'm saying, what's good, y'all? My name is Rashid. I just want to join the panel. I know it's Black women, but I'm saying, we know if it don't work for y'all, it don't work for us. You feel me? And I'm saying, y'all need to be talking to all the dudes in your life. You feel me? I know, I'm on the podcast. If you want to understand what's going on right now, it's going to make a lot more sense. But my point is that people is enthusiastic, but you got to, everybody talk about the AI, the misinformation. Y'all got to understand, brothers be going through it, and we need y'all to stand with us, you know what I mean? Take us to the polls, like they say. And when you see us acting, like we don't need to be acting, try to have some compassion, because it's rough out here in these streets.
Wow.
Wow. My point is that I'm hopeful, but we have to bring everybody with us, everybody. And I think, yes, we need Black women voting in the ways that we are, but we had Kamala had what? White women for Kamala, white dudes for Kamala. We need to make sure everybody is joining us. That's my hope. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not even here anymore. I'm just serious. I don't know about y'all, but Rashid just hit the stage, and he was not an expected guest. But
I apologize.
But we welcome him. We welcome his presence on stage. We hope he's headed to the polls right now. He had to go. He had to go vote early. Selena, back to voter enthusiasm and Kamala Harris. What is it that you're seeing? Through your work and voters that you're interacting with?
Yeah, so we definitely felt a bump after the announcement was made in terms of more engagement around the country. So the league is in all 50 states, plus DC and the U.S. Virgin Islands, and we have 783 local leagues, so we're everywhere, right? And so there definitely was some enthusiasm around that. And I think we have felt that, and we're just riding the wave, right? We're nonpartisan, we don't support candidates or parties. I don't think I have to say that. But let me just talk about this thing. We sometimes, I feel like, often throw around this word apathy. And apathy is, just very basically defined as just disenchantment with whatever it is you're talking about. That's not what Black people experience. That's right. We are not apathetic. We are one segment of people who are constantly targeted. That's right. And when you are targeted in that way, it's not about apathy. It's about overcoming what people are trying to create as impossible barriers. And so I just want to name that, because even when I am on the news or talking with other folks, I push back on that because I'm like, don't label us as that. So I want us to be empowered. Voting is power. And the reason why we're targeted is because people don't want us to have it. And so we have to confront that as people, and everyone's going to vote however they vote. But my whole thing is participate. No one on this planet deserves for any one of us to give up our power. We are not abdicating power. And so I think my enthusiasm is around confronting those narratives and speaking truth to power and making sure that we address people directly with what we're really going through, because nobody gets to tell our story but us. So I'll just say that.
Such a good point. Not apathetic, persuadable, right? People whose votes are worth being earned. Yes. Right? That is the narrative that we need to be talking about, not the narrative that we are not interested, don't care, and are not paying attention, because none of those things.
Go ahead and talk about it,
are
Lene.
true.
Lene gonna talk about this.
Lene has, I can, like Lene's face says, I have a lot to say about this.
And persuadable just hit my ears in an interesting way, and I think we're still searching for the word, because I think, at least what I gathered from your statement, is that Black people are continually targeted during election season in the most inauthentic way. Our votes are pandered for, and someone like myself, I've detached myself enough from the way politics goes to know that I'm not invested in whatever that performance is. I'm invested in speaking my truth to power and engaging my vote in a way that's going to be in service to me and my community and the communities that I care about. And one of my mentors said to me, as we've been talking through the difficulties of how we engage with Black audiences that are now global citizens in a different way, and she said, people love Black women's ability to be intersectional, but then can't stand when we have to make intersectional decisions. And that is something that's so important to me, and I feel like we have to really emphasize in this moment, because our power, no one else has what we have. And I'm not even just saying as Spelman women, but Black women, no one else on this earth has what we have, the ability and foresight to see through all of these things and make informed decisions in ways that don't just benefit us, but benefit everybody. And what I'd like to see during this election season is VP Harris being exactly who she is and all of who she is, and not really succumbing to expectations of who she should be to have a position like this. I will admit, I was in the middle of a content shoot the day that it was announced that she took the seat. Everybody sat down, we were scared. We was stressed, because I think a lot of us thought that we would have a really good chance that she might end up being in the seat just due to whatever complications that might exist via the 25th Amendment. But to require America to choose her was very scary on day one. And then seeing all the enthusiasm, seeing everybody rally around her, it was like such a breath of fresh air that we didn't have to hold on to that weight for very long. But I've loved seeing her come to Atlanta and do her rallies and invite Megan Thee Stallion. I've loved seeing so much information about her past, like who she might have dated, where she might have been, because I think what we've all been waiting to see is a is the ability to de-pedestalize respectability politics because it doesn't welcome all of us into the room. And when people say that, oh, Kamala Harris isn't black, whatever, but also saying that she's not black because of her choices or how she presents herself. She is the target audience. She's an HBCU grad, so why wouldn't she have a Beyonce song as her walkout song? Why wouldn't she be inviting hip hop artists because she listens to that kind of music? This is who she is, and she just looks like who we are. And that's what I've appreciated most. We've been wanting the rooms to look different, so now that it is, what are the complaints about?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of the enthusiasm is about. And I really appreciate the point that you're making about voters understanding that their participation is about their power. It's not about electing other people to give them power. It's about the power that we have.
Yeah.
Right? Simone, I want to come to you and ask you about the enthusiasm maybe that you've seen at Spelman or that you've seen in the state. What does that look like? What is that telling you about, Kamala Harris's candidacy and how people are responding?
Yeah, I think having VP Harris at the top of the ticket is proving to Spelmanites, proving to black women, proving to black families what is possible and what our power can help make permanent. This can be a permanent moment for American politics. This can be a permanent moment for politics in general, where we're seeing members of our electorate show up for people who are real, show up for people who are representative of our values, of our desires, of our likes and dislikes, of our policy issues. I think that it's equally as exciting as it is scary. That's something that I can identify with. I was actually in the middle of service when the announcement came out. It was a Sunday afternoon. And I sat down because I was like, whoa, I'm not ready for this. Like, I'm not ready for the hate that's gonna come with this woman at the ticket. Like, I'm not braced for so you think she can win because she's this, that, and the third. She needs to do a little bit more to get our vote. I'm not ready for the black men who are gonna say she can't lead because she's a woman. Like, I'm bracing myself in service because what is going on? What is happening? I'm so excited. Prior to that announcement, I was onboarded as a White House Advanced Associate, and so I had been traveling with her in her official capacity. And so that began the shift into the campaign capacity. And I was just very scared. But at the rally, I worked the rally. That was my first trip back with the campaign. And there was so much joy in the room.
Yes.
There was so much possibility, like that, proving what is possible, all of that was in the room that day. There was joy, there was a sense of community, there was a sense of hope, there was a sense of camaraderie that I hadn't seen, that I didn't know we would see when I was bracing myself in the service. And so I'm excited to see that same level of joy and excitement on this campus. I'm excited to see young black women, young black political science students like myself look at the top of that ballot and think, I can do that. We can do that. We're going to put her in power, and we're going to make this possibility permanent for American politics and for the world to see that we have the black woman at the top of this ticket.
Say, one, y'all did a great job electing this young lady as your. But also, were you guys at the rally? Were y'all in the room? My favorite moment was, one, seeing that there were two AKA aunties at the DJ booth spinning for everybody, but when they played I'm Every Woman, and there were so many women across the room of all ages that stood up and were dancing and experiencing so much joy, that was a very emotional moment for me because I said, wow, I bet these women never imagined in their lifetime they would be able to be in a position to support and have this rallying around a black woman for the top of the ticket. And then I got there late, so I didn't get to sit who I was supposed to sit with, but I ended up sitting near all these white people, like older white people, and the camaraderie that they were trying with real and genuine effort to make. And yes, it was a little bit awkward, and you could tell that they were uncomfortable, but they were willing to be in the space with that discomfort. And I never did I think I'd see the day, So that was just really special to me. Being in the room and seeing different versions of what was going on, all was so indicative of hope. And I love the words that you chose. It's not what's possible, it's what we can make permanent. Yeah, what we can set precedent for. So very excited for this moment.
That swag surf was also a moment at the rally for me. I was just like, oh wait, they're hyped even before she's hit the stage.
Yeah.
They were so hyped for her. But I literally wrote a column saying that joy actually is a strategy for people who were suggesting that it was not. It has always been a strategy for black women. Hello, joy is radical for us and an act of revolution. So the idea that joy would be so centered in what she is doing and how she is approaching her candidacy did not surprise me at all. and also if fear gets to be a strategy, then why not joy, right? And fear has absolutely been a strategy. It is a strategy in this election as well. And so to see the enthusiasm that so many of you described, that we have been seeing at these rallies, that we've been seeing kind of translating into the volunteering and the organizing, to see that now translating into potentially voting now that election season, right? Because there's no such thing as election day anymore. It's election season, and it is very much underway. We are seeing truth in action. Literally. Early voting started, as we mentioned, in Georgia on Tuesday. Over 300,000 people voted on that first day. And just to put that in perspective for you all, that is a new record that was broken by nearly double from 2020, when 136,000 people voted on the first day of early voting then. That is just a snapshot of one state, I know, but it signals enthusiasm to me, right? Lene and Simone, I want to ask both of you how you think Gen Z and first-time voters are going to show up between now and November.
Yeah, I think we're ready. We looked at the 8 million number. It's 8.1 million of us who are joining this electorate, and that's power. We are ready to determine, or at least be a contributing factor in determining the outcome of this election. But what that looks like specifically for Gen Z is really utilizing our voice, utilizing the networks and platforms that are so unique to us. And so we're on social media, we're in the classroom, we're constantly talking with family and friends. And so what does that look like to shift the conversation into, hey, what's your voting plan for this week? We have a couple weeks to get that together. You want to go do a soul to the polls? Let's go to church and then go vote. Let's go make sure that we're utilizing the polling opportunities that Spelman has. Let's get on the bus, let's get on the van. So we're shifting the conversation. We're also not only shifting the conversation via word of mouth, but on our social medias. It's very scary to put your views out there, very scary to pronounce or just be able to proclaim, like, I'm voting for this because, of course, you're going to get pushback. But being confident in that and knowing that you have a community not only in the sisterhood, but among your family and among your village. And so we're shifting conversations not only face-to-face, but online. And then making sure that when we shift that conversation that we follow up, right? So what does my vote actually look like for Gen Z? A couple issues for me that I'm looking at all have to do with fundamental freedoms that I'm not willing to lose, right? So my freedom of my right to choose as a woman. Of course, my funding for HBCUs, because this is my right to knowledge, accurate knowledge that I won't have to worry about when I'm going into a room and someone's telling me that these ideologies are not real, or just the debate around CRT. I want to make sure that HBCUs are funded so that we can continue to combat the mis and disinformation that doesn't just happen in the electorate, but something that continues to occur even in our textbooks and even with book banning. And then, of course, making sure that we are able to show up for our environment, because in 2030, that is when the irreversible impacts of climate change will begin to settle within our world. And so we are just, 6 years away from that. And so those are my top 3 things that I think that even Gen Z can identify with, especially for the women in the room. And so we're shifting the conversations, we're following up, and we're making sure that we know our policy points that should and will continue to be on the ballot and represented within the general body of concerned and engaged citizens.
Lene, what are you hearing from young voters and seeing online?
One thing I will commend Gen Z about is that they are activated and that they are galvanized, and I do think they're going to show up in record numbers. What I am seeing for the stakes of this election is I do also think Gen Z is the most, they are most diverse in their approaches to what freedom looks like. And what I will say is, I've noted in my work with advocacy, I'll say that one, I never intended to be anywhere where someone would trust me to say anything about politics, because I didn't think it had anything to do with me, but it was my love of Black history, and the deeper that I got into what was going on in the world, that I recognized that everything Black people do, particularly Black women, is political. Yes. We don't have a choice. Everything is a form of resistance. Everything, we were never intended to be this free. And that is what made me lean into it. But anyways, in that journey, I've always understood that younger people will always think older people are doing it wrong. And that is what I see a lot from Gen Z right now, not really being in agreement with who is at the top of the ticket and what their choices are, and this obsession with how being on the right side of history, and I hate to say this, and I don't know a better way to say it, but I don't know that history will remember you. Like, history may not remember your individual vote, but history will remember the outcome of this election. And there's just a lot at stake, is all that I'll say. And I think we're making a lot of decisions based on what feels like emotionally correct. But this stuff is complicated, y'all. Like, electoral college ain't no joke. And because we were in a position where the electoral college literally took our popular vote away from us in 2020, that is a concern I have. I've decided not to worry about the outcome of this election. I've given it to God as well. But I just want people to be very critical of how they approach this season. And I just see the most of it coming from Gen Z. Like, yeah, even when there are enthusiastic posts being made at this time, it's still met with backlash, and it's understandable. I'm not taking away those perspectives because I 100% get it and I stand with you. My choice is to vote, and my choice is to give us the opportunity to make a difference long term.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right. I mean, that's such a good point that you're making. I
Fractured
have written
is the
in
word I
my
was looking for. Gen Z
column,
is most
you know,
fractured.
that democracy is on the ballot this year.
Yeah.
Right? This is an election about whether or not we get to have more elections.
Yes.
And if you do not
Simple as
prioritize
that.
democracy, then all of the other issues that we care about, we don't get to keep fighting about, right? Because you don't have a democracy to debate those things and push for the things that we want. Sarah, I know with your podcast, you're unpacking a lot of this, right? You're focused on personal and political trauma, and with everything that we're living through, right? Because the personal is political, as we're all talking about.
Yeah.
That feels even more accurate in this moment, in this election, and you are clearly not afraid of having difficult conversations. So I want to talk to you about some of the lessons that you've learned in those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, the America Who Hurt You, right, as a title, it kind of says where I'm coming from, which is, I mean, when you look at Black women, America hasn't done anybody as dirty as it does, you know, that combination, right? The misogynoir is so deep and meanwhile, Stacey Abrams comes and saves us, right? Kamala Harris comes and saves everybody on this, but you know, it's like we're here we are embodying democracy and yet being met with the trauma. And when I was hearing Simone talk about, and Lene talk about that fear, when the news first came out, I actually posted something right away about be careful around your sisters who are afraid of what's coming at all of us and at her. So it's both, it's very both and. The point of the podcast is our politics drive our trauma, and our trauma drives our politics. They're in a loop, especially for us as Black women and, you know, women of color, people of color more broadly. But I was gnashing my teeth for 4 years while a certain person was in office, you know, experiencing the pain of the racism and the misogyny attacking Maxine Waters. It was just so wild to have this person traumatizing an entire, you know, with racism and with sexism both. For me, the podcast is a response to that loop of trauma driving us, and then traumatized people. I'm sorry, but a certain person, if they had ever had therapy, I don't think we would have had them in office wreaking the havoc that they do. So my point is that to interrupt that, we need healing, and the personal is political. Please vote and also do your personal work to get at whatever trauma might be underneath. I don't know anybody who's Black and a woman or Black and, you know, non-binary who has lived in this country and not experienced racism and misogynoir and all of that. So to do our own personal healing while we vote, I find voting is healing. And I also just wanted to say to the piece about awkward white people, I have some in my family, and when I said that we as Black women, like this is about us and our vote, also, I mentioned Stacey Abrams, we are the beacon that, right, we lead, and like that's why I'm saying it's not that we should have to do more emotional labor for these folks, but when we lead and remind them, right, like the Black women call for Kamala, spawned the white women for Kamala call, spawned the white dudes for Kamala, South Asians for Kamala. Like we led and then people followed. And so that's why I'm saying, yes, it's us. Also, we do need everybody. Just us voting is not going to be enough. And so that's part of the principle of America Who Hurt You, and having my characters from different backgrounds, including an older white lady who's based on one of my real relatives, but she listens to the younger Black people.
I was like, wait a minute, who's about to pop out now?
I know. It's just me, Lorraine, here. Oh, okay, well, that's here, very quickly, because it's wonderful to be here with all of these beautiful black women. I know. Hi there, my name is Lorraine. Here's what I want to tell you. Most white people, Sarah comes from one of these families where it's a little mixed up. I know I'm not supposed to say that. But my point is, Kamala Harris represents an opportunity that in my day, we would never have imagined, to have a woman at the top of the ticket. And I'm so old, I don't even want to tell you how old I am, but I know that the people here, there are some white people who are very afraid of what's happening. Don't bother running after the racists, trust me. But the people who you can persuade, only you can say to them, hey, you posted a black square on your, the Instagram in 2020, and you claim that you protest and you care about the Black Lives Matter. Well, do whatever those same people are doing now, and that means vote.
Anyway, that's what I try to do, is bring us to the conversation across all of it, because we need everybody to follow us.
For sure.
I think I saw her at the rally.
She was moving slow, but she was there.
I mean, but that does, I mean, it makes me think, Lene, about those white women that you talked about at the rally that you were sitting next to, that pushed through to really try to be in community with you in that moment. I wonder if you, Lene, or you, Sarah, Selena, you can also chime in here. Advice for the rest of us about how to face difficult topics, how to have kind of some of those hard conversations with the people who may be open to having those conversations, right?
Well, first, let me say that I feel like we have more white allies than, and when I say allies, not just raising your hand saying, yes, I'm supportive, but actually may show up this round, right? And we'll see. Being a black CEO, most of my members are white. When I tell you these ladies ride for me, they ride for the organization, they ride for me. And so I will just say that in this election season, I think we're gonna see something different. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that different is. But I would just say, we've talked a lot about fear, we've talked a lot about the different tactics that people or politicians put out there to either motivate or demotivate people, right? And first things first, trauma is real. Yes. It is not imagined. It is not just us being too sensitive. It's not us being in our feelings, et cetera. It is real. There's this study about mice and cherry blossoms, which I won't, the quick and dirty one is so it was these mice in a cage, and they blew cherry blossoms, and when they blew the cherry blossoms, they would also shock them so that they would feel trauma, right? And so after a while, they would smell the cherry blossom, and immediately they would shriek. And then they sent them all out to these other labs and noticed that when they made mini mice, or what are they called? Mice made babies, I don't know. Whatever. Their offspring, also when they smelled cherry blossom, they also shrieked, not ever being shocked. And that went 5 generations. So if you think about slavery, which was here for 235 years, and a generation being 20 to 25 years, imagine how much trauma people have experienced in this country. So it's very, very real, so I say that. But so that we're not ending on a negative, the answer to trauma is healing and Black joy. That is how we combat trauma. That's at least some of the way. We should not be shy about having joy. Sometimes it's like a hesitation. And even with Kamala, they tried to villainize joy, which is wild, right? Why is it not okay for Black people, Black women specifically, to have joy? So we have to normalize that as well. Trauma is real, but also joy is just as real, and we have the power to embrace that, right? And so even as there was this narrative of fear, I felt my peers, Black women in my circle, rallying to protect a Black woman. Yes. Which was that hit me really hard, the fact that we automatically, there was fear, and it's like, now what do? We protect, right? And so I think that's what we do. And so I think about the moment that we're in and the moment that we'll be in after this, because whether you choose to vote or not, there will be an outcome, and we all have to live with it. And so making those choices and having those conversations, to me, I feel like it's just so critical to have those conversations, have the discourse, and understand why people are opting out, why they don't feel safe voting, or why they don't. Just have a conversation. It's so critical to just have the conversation. And in my conversations, I have found that One, I'm not going to tell people what to do. I just want to listen and hear what you're saying and provide resources. Maybe think about this, maybe think about that, and then make your own choice. But I would say stand in our joy. Let's dance our way to the election and every moment afterwards, and whatever that outcome is, and just praying that it's a moment where we can truly just be unabashedly joyful.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has been, well, I mean, every election, we know that Black women are the backbone of this democracy. Even before we had access to the franchise, we were helping to shape and perfect this union. But I am seeing so many Black women leading, right? Whether it is in official capacities like yours, Selena, or unofficial capacities. People, you know, I'm getting text messages from friends who were not political in any way, and yet they're sending out the group text saying, make sure you've got a plan to vote. They're organizing, right? They may not be an official organizer, but they are doing the work of organizing. They're phone banking. They're getting in touch with the people that they care about and the people that they know to make sure that they're going to be engaged in this election, because it does feel existential, again, for them. So I wonder about some of the ways that all of you are seeing Black women exercising our political power in this moment, as voters, as volunteers, as organizers, as candidates, as messengers. How are you seeing that? Simone.
The mic needs to be on. That's right. There it is. I think that Black women are showing up even just walking in the room and possessing that joy and channeling the power and agency that we hold in conversations, in the workplaces, in our families. I think the way that we show up best is by consistently showing up in those spaces as our authentic selves, working on our healing, working on the things that, you know, maybe we're not too comfortable with, that we're not enjoying in the political sphere, but are willing to combat. I think that even seeing my mom, she has not always been, you know, gung-ho, like really excited about politics, but she's always going to vote. This is the first time that I've seen her engage. This is the first time that I've seen her send messages. She's one of those people that you described. She's like, I donated to the campaign. You know, if Kamala's coming to Connecticut, I'm like, Mom, she's probably not going to come to Connecticut. That's not an area that she's going to need support in. But she's like, if she comes to Atlanta, like, I have to get a flight. I'd love to see her. And so seeing that level of excitement and joy from my mom, who's always had joy, but in a different lens, I'm like, this is amazing. And having her friends do the same is equally as exciting. But a little more along our playing field as Spelmanites, I think there's a heightened sense of awareness and enthusiasm going into this election, because whereas other times we'd only see one certain demographic on the ballot, now we're seeing a little bit more like us. We're seeing Black women, we're seeing a Black family, we're seeing an HBCU graduate, we're seeing a soror, we're seeing a friend, a mom, an aunt, a sister on the ballot. And so what that brings for us is a little bit more excitement than what we usually have. What that brings for us is a little bit more joy than what we usually have. But also what that brings for us is a need to, addressing the question before, call people into conversations rather than calling them out. I don't think this is a good time to, you know, throw away our friends who are worried about voting or scared about going to the ballot box or worried about what's going to come of their vote. I think that that brings about an opportunity to think critically about our approach and to be extremely persuasive, but kind in your persuasion. Hey, what's going on? Why don't you feel the need to vote? What issues are concerning you the most? Like, let's talk about that. Do you know about these policies on both sides that may in fact help those issues? Hey, do you want to go to vote together? Should we do this together? Let's make a party out of it. We can celebrate. It's necessary to call people into the conversations rather than, oh, you don't want to vote? You don't like Kamala? I'm confused. She's the best thing going. Like, that's not going to work right now. And so we're being very strategic in our placement and very strategic in this moment as Black women, and really making sure that when we show up as our authentic self, we're also able to have those critical conversations in a way that will be impactful, will be helpful, and will be essential for this outcome that we desire.
I'm just imagining Simone saying, oh, let's go to Waffle House. Oh, wait, look, there's a voting precinct. Let's stop right here and vote right now. I do love hash browns. I mean, I just want to ask all of you for just a final thought about kind of the weight of history, the weight of this moment. Is America ready? I hear y'all talking about just kind of the concern about a backlash similar to the backlash that we saw in 2008 when Barack Obama was elected and became our first Black president, and also just about the stakes of what a second Donald Trump presidency could mean for Black women in particular. So I know that's a big question, but if you have thoughts on kind of any of those areas, I would love to hear them as we kind of close this conversation out.
I want to jump in because I want to hear these women round it out and take us home. But my first thought is I just got to interview on my podcast Janae Nelson, who you all may know is the incredible leader of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. And
Another black woman on the front lines.
Another black woman on the front lines, right? And we were talking about, like, I had a character who's like Gen Z, just no shade. She's not y'all, she's not here. But hi, like, my name is Bella. I don't want to like white-splain in this room. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm already sorry just for like being here in this space. But like, I fully like 10 toes down. Like, I totally get it. Like, you know, follow the black people, like all of that stuff. But like, it's hard. Like, I have a lot of friends who are like, I'm not voting because of like whatevs. Like, we know, I'm not saying it because Sarah Jones can't say it on our podcast or whatever. But like, there's reasons and people don't want to do it. So I had her on talking to Janae. And Janae was like, look, ancestors need everybody to understand what's at stake here. And so the ancestor who came out of me is, my name is Dolores. I'm gonna tell y'all in this room right now, I'm older than all of y'all, mama, grandmama, probably everybody on this stage. But yes, we gonna talk about it. We gonna compare birth certificate. I'm gonna tell y'all something. I'm from North Carolina, not that far from here, and I remember when I couldn't even look white people in the face walking down the street, because it was illegal. You understand me? You gonna tell me you can't go to the voting place when I wasn't allowed to vote at all? I can't. I understand y'all emotional and you're triggered and all your other words, trauma and all that. This is bigger than y'all. This y'all ancestors is calling y'all to do what they couldn't even dream is possible, which is put a black woman in the White House. Think about that. Just put her in there. I know y'all got philosophical whatever. Just understand that you are standing on the shoulders of people who this would have not even been possible to dream. You know what to do. Tell everybody else. If you got to guilt some white people, they'll be all right. Just guilt them.
Wow. I know y'all thought there were 5 people on this stage, but actually there's 10 apparently.
There's 10.
There's 20. But I want to hear real.
Who else? Final thoughts?
Yes.
Yeah.
On the tidbit on ancestors, something that I like to say that's a joke, but also being so for real, I'm not about to waste Harriet Tubman's time. Do you know how many trips that lady took up and down, the whatever, to get people and bring them freedom? I'm not wasting her time. But beyond that, I don't remember what year the song A Choice to Change the World came to Spelman. I think it was right before my freshman year. And that song has been touching my heart so much right now, because we literally have the opportunity to change the world. And how? It's not just this one election, but if we've seen all the things that this year, since October 7th, has brought to us as a community, and the way that we are forcing hard conversations out in the open, the way we're not demanding just allyship, but accomplishship, people to drive the getaway car, people to use their bodies to shield our work. We have to continue to choose the hard thing, y'all. And I'm not saying that we have to do it in a hard way. I think what Simone said was very impactful. Something that's going to be in the organizational culture of good people is something that I learned every training for a teaching program I'd ever done, is that nobody cares what you know until they know that you care. And so it's going to require a lot of bringing people in and calling people in and sharing space at the table. And we've learned how to take up space unapologetically as Black women and to not take anything but yes for an answer. But what does it look like to share space with people who are still on their way? And as Black people, we say often it's not our job to teach the world how to treat us. And you're right, it's not our job, but nobody knows how to do it like we do. And so I would just encourage you to continue to choose the hard thing, continue to have the tough conversation, continue to turn the villainization of you in the workplace or whatever for your emotions or your feelings, which are actual appropriate responses to the ways that you've been treating. I'm asking you to continue to choose the uncomfortable thing, because we have to make the uncomfortable thing the regular thing. It has to be commonplace for us to be able to express ourselves, for people who are marginalized to have voice. It has to be the common thing. And if we want to change the way industries work, our political structure works, economies works, to no longer marginalize us, we have to continue to push back. And we're seeing that here. We have an opportunity to kickstart that with this election. And that's all I have to say. Continue to choose. Continue to choose.
I would just say, just speaking to individuals, remember who you are. And you are not even who you're truly going to be in this moment. You are still in formation, right? And I would just say, remember who you are. One of the things that I so deeply appreciate about Spelman is that it gave me the thick skin that I needed to survive in this world. Not only survive, but thrive. And so I would say, remember that. And it's not always easy because you come up against things, but remember that and share your story. The stories are what help us remember what this time was like. And so just be cognizant of your story, remember your story, and just stand in your power. All of y'all are powerful. So I just hope that you all remember that as you walk out the doors today.
I definitely agree with all the points, but I want to remind Spelmanites of the weight of this moment. I want us to feel the heaviness. We only have a couple weeks, only a couple days to figure this thing out. And that weight, although it's heavy, although it may be stressful, although it may be exhausting, although you may not even find a way to identify with this weight that some of us share on the stage, find a way to connect to that and understand that it's a worthy burden because you have the choice. And so with that choice, it reminds me of the saying of the scripture, to whom much is given, much is required. We've been gifted with this beautiful choice, with this amazing possibility, with an excellent option. We've been gifted with the choice to choose democracy over dictatorship. We've been given with the choice to choose faith over fear, to combat misinformation with knowledge, with our lived experience, with our history, with our love of choice and love of fundamental freedoms. And so when you feel that weight, when you navigate the weight of this moment, recognize that much is required of you. So do the thing, do the hard thing, channel that responsibility, and do so with grace and with love and with the poise of a Spelmanite. Because I look out into the room and I see so many people who are going to make the right choice, not just in 2 weeks, not just tomorrow, but forever, because this is what we have been trained and empowered to do in and around this community. So the weight may be heavy, it may be a burden. I recall sitting vividly in the congregation and being like, whew, this is going to be hard. To whom much is given, much is required. Okay? So we're taking full advantage of those requirements, and we're holding that responsibility with so much pride and joy because we have precious cargo in our hands and an amazing gift that we can receive soon if we make that choice. I'm so excited. I'm so confident. I leave this stage with so much enthusiasm and excitement because we're going to do the hard thing, and we're going to do the hard thing well.
I could not think of a better note to end on. 19 days to go, y'all. We have the power as Black women. We make the choice. We are the deciders in this election. So that is all the time that we have today. I want to thank you so much, Sarah, Lene, Selena, Simone, for this conversation. Thank you, Spelman, for having us.
Thank you, Errin, for moderating and for the 19th on this 19th day.